Wicked Spursy, Mike and Steve, and we have a very special guest today. I'll let Mike introduce in a moment here, but first, Mike, how are you, man? We made it to March, if you can believe it.
Jesus Christ, we made it to March. Uh, we'll talk about this with our special guest in a second, but I haven't killed any fish, um, which is good. So that fish is going strong for 2 years now. Um, I haven't cut my fingers open in about a year, so that's good. What else is going on? Oh yeah, it was about 50 degrees for the past 4 or 5 days, and it's dropped down to fucking two. What else? Oh yeah, I had some nice beers on Saturday without my friend Steve, even though I invited him down to the lodge. Or was that Friday night?
That
That was
was
Friday
Friday
night.
night.
Yeah, so I mean, everything's rolling pretty well. We had some football matches to watch today. Another Man United loss, this time in penalties, which was really fun to watch to Fulham. But yeah, it's been a pretty good week. I mean, despite what we'll talk about in a minute, it's been a pretty good week. How about you, Stevie?
Mike, you may have watched some cup matches today. I watched a traitorous coward tuck tail and run. Uh, Apparently, if you're a fascist douchebag, you can't vacation in this state without 1,600 people showing up and telling you to get lost. So I've been following that pretty closely. I've been enjoying the hell out of it, and yeah, I guess instead of sticking around today to do some more skiing, he changed his travel arrangements twice to get the fuck out of this state. So, hope the door hit him on the way out. Maybe don't be a douchebag Nazi sympathizer.
Well, I
Not
guess
sorry at all.
Steve just went right into it. So
I've been excited. Some of these signs that people have been putting out there have been hilarious. My personal favorite was the very direct hide your couch. Of course, because JD Vance fucks couches. Um, you don't want that. We want our couches to be for sitting and entertaining guests, not for explicit sexual activity.
well, there
Um,
you go. So with that,
Great
not
segue.
this isn't a segue or anything, but we're gonna get right into introducing our special guest. He's a
Not
member of the
Vance.
he's a member of the Green Mountain Boys, one of the founding members, along with myself, and he is a frequent contributor to our our super cooler at the old pre-match festivities. He gets there early on with me. We set up tents and all kinds of stuff. He is known as the Hop Butcher. He is the head brewer at Prohibition Pig Brewing in Waterbury, Vermont. He is a Man City fan, so we'll let him talk a little tiny bit about that. During our match breakdown. But Terry Thompson, how are you, buddy?
Oh, let me say first, if we're going with the signs in the valley, my
Yes.
favorite one was JD, you ski like a fascist. That was probably one of my favorite ones that I saw. Um, I ended up leaving the country though, because I would have been down there in the valley. I went to Montreal, got back this morning, so I'm great, Pops. This is fun. It's been a while. You haven't invited me on to many of these yet, so let's have some fun with this.
I'm hoping we'll have some fun with this, but
We try to have some fun with this.
yeah,
Yeah.
I generally let Steve drive the car here, but um,
It's always a
let's
mistake.
whenever we have guests on, it's usually Tottenham fans and we or other Tottenham podcasters, but let's ask Terry his Man City origin story.
Ooh, it's a good one actually because it was way before the money. Shockingly, um, I was a foreign exchange student in high school. I went to Australia, and my first host family was like, we stay up late on Saturdays, Friday nights, and we watch soccer, Premier League. And at the time, like we didn't really get it too well in the U.S. So I looked at the rosters and I'm like, what about this Manchester City team? They're like, they suck. And I'm like, perfect. There was an American, Claudio Reyna, was on that team at the time. So I picked them because my brother liked Man U and still does. And, right around that, 15, 16 age, you don't really like anything your brother likes. So I picked Man City and have been with Man City since then. It's been great. It was bad at the beginning. It's been great. And now it's a speed bump again this year.
I mean, I wouldn't call it a speed bump. I mean, for a second there, Spurs thought they broke Man City. 2 consecutive losses real quick, and people coming back from injuries often helps, as we in Spurs land are finding out.
It's true. I think our listeners will be fascinated that there are, in fact, Manchester City fans pre-money injection. So they do exist. I'm sure there's dozens of you. It's nice to have you on. I think it's going to be an interesting conversation because, as Mike alluded, we had beaten City this season twice, but you guys got the better of us in the most recent match. So it was bound to happen. It happened in a rather spectacular fashion. I hope kind of that Pedro Porro has nightmares of Doku running at him. Dude needs to learn to defend sometime. And that's one way to have that burn in your brain. But Mike, I want you two to kind of banter on this a bit. Why don't you guys talk about the match? Let me know what you both saw from your differing perspectives, and I'm curious to hear if your views on the match line up, or if we've got different rose-colored views going at this. So I'm very interested to hear how you both break it down.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, Man City dominated the first half. We come out, we see the lineups, right? And I have questions straight off, but at the same time, I know that priority right now, likely for Spurs, is Europa, because unless we have some sort of miraculous push to the end of the season where we don't lose any matches, Europe's probably pretty much off the table for us. So, I mean, obviously, Ange is coming in, probably thinking, let's see what we can do with this match. Rest some guys for AZ that's coming up next week, which we'll talk about later, and then and see what we can do with this lineup. So we had Wilson out there, right? We had Son on the bench. We had Decky on the bench. We had Pedro Porro out there, right? And Jet on the bench, right? Because Udogi's playing back into fitness. So obviously City dominates the first half. They had several opportunities straight off. Obviously the Doku one. But quite honestly, like they probably if the finishing was better, if there was a lesser goalkeeper in there, someone like Onana, and they didn't have Vicario in there. And I mean, and any even neutrals will admit that Vicario is a prolific shot stopper. And he actually plays the role really well because he is kind of demonstrative, when he makes his saves. He dives all over the place and he jumps back up. He's very, very quick on his feet. I think that for the first half, Tottenham were absolutely dominated. Not necessarily in time of possession, but we were losing all our duels. We're losing on dribbles, dribbles completed, progressive passes. We were losing. It was statistically we were losing on just about every metric except for maybe it was just about 50-50 at halftime of possession. So coming out of halftime, I'm going to let Terry take it from here to see what he thought about the first half, but. Quite honestly, I didn't. I said it in the WhatsApp group, right? I said, I said we're going to lose fucking 4-0 straight off as soon as Doku scored, and you know we held on through the first half, and I think it was mostly to Vicario's credit.
Well, you mean Holland scored, not Doku.
Or Holland scored, yeah, right. Doku, sorry.
I mean, Holland always scores.
It was Doku. It was Doku's ball, right? Yeah, you're right.
Beautiful play.
He's just the one who
he's just
caused the terror.
I'm sure Pedro has got nightmares still from Doku. First half though, I would say I would, agree with all of that right there. It's kind of nice because last match was Liverpool, and we got mopped off the pitch. It was just not. It hasn't been good. I've been saying now for probably 6 months that Ederson needs to go, and then look what happens. For this game, he decides to finally show up and kind of put my foot in my mouth. My patience is running very thin with Savinho right now. I know he's young. I know he's going to get into the flow. I know it might take a year or two to get into the flow, but he's basically a cut replacement for Mahrez. Mahrez was there. Mahrez left. He went, in Saudi Arabia. They bring in Savinho. Cut and paste, same player. Just not getting the production and end product at all from him. I do know there's a lot of us that are very thin. It's very thin right now with him. Overall, I mean, Vicario, like as you said, I like him. He's a great keeper. It's like we're gonna have a goalkeeper problem at City over the summer. Ortega's probably gonna leave unless Ederson leaves first. Ortega deserves to start every match, and it's just not fair that he's in and out. Just we can't keep players fit. We had players back, and then we just lost Nathan Ake yesterday in the FA Cup, so now he's gone for a while. So we feel you on the injury front. I will say though, the first half I thought going after first 45, it should have been probably let's say 2.5-0. Holland should have had that second one. And Doku's one cut inside. Vicario pushed it off the side, saved it. That was nice as well. So I would say the first 45 was an old school Manchester City, which was nice to see on my end.
But what about the second 45? I'll let Terry start this one, and then Mike can give his
Second 45, I mean, Spurs should have scored right off the start. They should have scored right off the start, continuing now, and then then it's a new match with 40 minutes, whatever it is, 40 minutes left, and it's just like now it's 1-1. Can I just go to the end and say that was bullshit VAR call on the handball? Just straight up bullshit. Again, I don't understand VAR and what they're trying to do with it. It's messy. It's just gross. Ederson made some fantastic stops. What was it? One against Son in the second half, I believe. That kept the game 1-0. It's nice to see McAtee getting minutes for City. Like we had that Cole Palmer situation a couple years back where he's breaking through and then doesn't get minutes. Now he's gone. I'm hoping that doesn't happen with McAtee and now Nico O'Reilly, who I'm really liking as that left back spot. Poppy, I'll let you go off of that one a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that Spurs, I think we're playing pretty well. We had a lot. So this, if you're looking at the lineup, and this is no joke. This is actual fact. This is statistical fact. This was the youngest Spurs lineup since something like 2002, right? So you're out there. You have Wilson Odobert at 19 years old. You have Berval out there at 18 years old. I mean, what we were missing. I mean, Archie Gray, who he again was phenomenal on the day.
PFA Young Player of the Year.
PFA Young Player of the Year, right? So, we're looking at a bright future here, but like at the same time, it's good to get those veterans the rest that they need because they've been out there. The guys that were out there, or that were rested, the Son and Decky and Pedro Porro probably should have been rested too. Spence's is running super high right now, probably one of the top 3 players in the league right now. And what we needed, we got until the 65th minute. I think they were going to be introduced around the 60th minute, and then and play just didn't stop for like 5 minutes. So finally you get those subs on, and I think at that point, and maybe just prior to that, like the game changes a little bit. So Spurs start to hold on to a little bit more possession. You can see those City players out there that, and like we talked about, they do have some injuries and they're unable to sub the way they want to. Even though when they do sub, they bring on a talent like Phil Foden, who I felt in this game was very disappointing. But I think that's when the game turns around for Spurs. That's when they start holding possession. That's when they start breaking through, and you're able to do some of the things that you had hoped you would do in the regular season all season long, but it's not happening, right? Because of that injury crisis and I hate to keep harping on this and harping on it, but we are where we are because of that, and because of lack of a deep bench and lack of options, right? Like, you look at, I'm not joking. Like, look at City, because for years and years and years, they had those deep benches, and you're like, holy fuck! Like they had like they could take Aguero off, at any point, and then next thing you know, you have a young peak Raheem Sterling coming in, running at you. They had so many options everywhere. Like you had a young, healthy De Bruyne. They had serious weapons that they could put out there constantly, and you can see Liverpool's doing that now, and you can see Arsenal is doing that now. They have options on the bench, and when you don't have options on the bench,
on death's door.
What's that?
I thought they were on death's door with all their injuries.
Oh, Arsenal, yeah. They're really on death's door,
and that's like their entire team.
So they have no strikers, so like that's the reason that they suck now. But
bunch of fucking wankers, am I right?
But I mean, when you're looking at that, what's that?
I said Arsenal. They got McGillicuddy.
I think when you're looking at that, Tottenham really turned things around, and they started to get a lot of chances. Like you saw those statistics evening out a little bit at a time. And I will admit, and I will play your game, Terry, here, and I will admit, and I have the text to prove it. I said, "Holy fuck, Holland got robbed." He got robbed. But even if it were called a goal, he got fucking very lucky, because it kind of like it just rolled the right way and bounced off the right people the right way. It was really fucking weird. And the exhibit, and I will give it to Holland, because I thought he was just a destructive Terminator from the future previously. I will give it to him. The composure that he had to keep that ball there and to keep the ball at his feet, instead of just kind of shipping it off when it finally fell to the ground, I think was pretty amazing. I'm sad that it went down that way. And you're right, VAR is a fucking mess, and it delays restarts. It delays quick restarts. It delays celebrations for goals. It is really starting to take some of the fun out of the game. And every time they try and make a change on it, I feel like it really it hurts the game even more. You see Major League Baseball with their all the changes that they're making, they're improving the game. They're making it better for the fans to watch. They're making the game quicker. There's a lot of things that they can do with VAR that they're just not doing, because they're not looking at the other leagues to see what works for them.
I just want VAR to go rugby rules where the VAR official talks and we can hear the conversation. That's all I wanted. That's step one. Let's hear the conversation between the VAR official and the on-pitch official and see where that goes. Transparency. Rugby's transparent. And I would say their VAR system is wonderful. Yeah.
I would love that as well. I think that's an ingenious idea. I just wonder how many are going to go like the David Coote route, where you find out that VAR has been doing lines in the back, and then it's like, oh shit, I got to look at something. God damn. Fuck, I don't know. Give me like 10 minutes.
That's fair. That's definitely
who knows? And but yeah, there absolutely needs to be improvement. Part of me does feel like they self-sabotage just so that they can get rid of it and not have to deal. But I did think of an interesting thought experiment that I'd like to run by you both. So I'm going to mix in a little bit of some American football in here. All right. So let's, for the sake of argument, assume that you are both in charge of the front office for your respective clubs. You have to come to an agreement on a player trade, 1-for-1. Who are you going to trade that you think the other person would agree to?
Oof.
So you're saying from city to Tottenham. Okay. Ooh, I got to think about this for 1 second.
Yep. And then Mike's got to do Tottenham to City. But the key is, it can't just be, I'm going to take your best player and give you our worst. It's
so I can't be like, I'll give you Timo Werner and we will take Holland.
Yeah, you'd want something that the other person might actually agree to.
Something, okay. I would do De Bruyne for Son. Really? At this point.
Interesting. Terry, would you accept that trade?
Probably, to be honest, I probably would. He's at the end of his career. He's not playing, 52 matches at 90 minutes a game anymore. Same with Son, though.
I mean, that's kind of why I made that. Like, it's hard to sit there and go, I'm going to give you, say, Mikey Moore for Rico, right? For Rico Lewis. Like, I'm definitely not giving up Mikey Moore for Rico Lewis, but
I like Rico Lewis. Let's see. There's one player that's probably gonna leave this summer that I'd probably go away with. I'd give you Bernardo Silva. Or Jack Grealish. I love Jack Grealish. Give you one of those two. In return, it's not going to happen, but Kulusevski. Not going to happen, but that, yeah.
For Grealish. Yeah, so here's how I feel on that. I think that, like, I think Kulusevski at this point, Decky is okay. Jack Grealish is probably on the downward turn of his career. He was going to be welcomed back to Aston Villa with open arms, I think, which would have been a nice return for him. But I think Kulusevski, being 24 years old right now, for an aging Jack Grealish, we were going to be going after Jack Grealish when he was 22 to 24 years old, and we had the opportunity to buy him for less than 30 million or 20. It was 20 million, right? 30 US. At his peak at Villa before he went to City 2 different times. And for some reason, Levy didn't pull the trigger there. I think it was partially because we had Son, and it was like a like for like, type of a thing. And Son was on the up at the time as well. I like Grealish because he is I think honestly Grealish is one of those dribbly kind of wingers that might fit into Tottenham really well. I don't know that I would give up Kulusevski for. I wouldn't give up Kulusevski for a let's see. Who would I don't even know if I would give up Kulusevski for Foden at this
I
point.
wouldn't give up Foden though. That's the problem.
So there's
You got to think about homegrown rules, roster rules. So Foden falls right into that. So him and like McAtee, I don't want them to ever leave. I want them to stay, succeed, and fill that quota.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing too, is that Tottenham has a homegrown issue right now. So when and if we are somehow in Europe next year, that's gonna be an issue. That will be an issue. But I think with a lot of our young players that we're bringing in and bringing up, I think that there's going to be a lot of options next year, and we're going to continue the youth movement at Tottenham. But that was an interesting experiment. How about you, Steve? What did you have on your mind?
Yeah,
on my mind,
like as far as that trade goes, like what would you have? It's really, really hard because like Bernardo Silva too is an older fella, and I don't he
runs so much though. He would workhorse.
That's true. Absolutely true. But you're going for star power. You're going for how can we get a great player for hopefully a different kind of great player. I am going to go what I would hope is a slightly different route, and I'm going to see if I can get maybe like middle of the pack, kind of just somebody who's like, all right, whatever. For me, because we all know how much I love this guy, I would offer up Yves Bissouma in the midfield, and maybe I'll take I'll ask for like an Oscar Bob.
Oof.
Yeah, that's fallen that back to that homegrown route and everything. I do like him. I'm happy that he's coming back to fitness soon.
He's he's an interesting one, and I would love to see him get some more minutes for City. I don't know. He's just one of those kids that just looks like they're playing at a level beyond their age, which is always nice to see. I really appreciate that. I mean, we're fortunate at Spurs to have that with Archie Gray, who looks like a bona fide James Milner type, been doing this for fucking 20 years or whatever it is, if he's still going. But he's only 18. So I love when you've got these players who come on and it's like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I can hang. But it's funny. I just thought of a different sort of question. And I'm going to pose this one to you, Terry, because I don't know if you're aware of this. I shared it with Mike earlier this weekend. There was a comment from West Ham's Souček where he was talking about how difficult the league is and how their goal for West Ham is to finish above Tottenham. And it's funny because like West Ham thinks that this is this big rivalry, and I legitimately forgot they were a team. Like I haven't thought about West Ham all season, and here is their captain coming out and going, "Yeah, we're gonna finish above Tottenham." And I looked, and yeah, we're level on points, but they've scored like 30 less goals or some shit like that. So, he means nothing to me. That means nothing. So the question that I have for you, do you ever feel that way about Arsenal when they're like, we're going to compete with City for the title? It's like, really?
No,
you?
I don't because it's like, listen, like I like Arteta. He left, Pep, but he hasn't really done anything. He hasn't everyone's like Arteta's the next coming of God, and he hasn't really won anything. You know what? If they win this year, they can have a clap because they haven't really done anything since the Invincibles. Just about. Maybe there might have been another one running there, but
they won an FA Cup, and yeah,
cool,
recently-ish,
and they won a Community Shield, I think, too.
Right.
But no, I don't. Not really for Arsenal at all.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
funny
most of
because
the
you
players
look.
on Arsenal are former City players. Zinchenko, Sterling. Sterling's kind of at the end. Gabby Jesus. They just leave City to go to Arsenal.
It's funny to me because you look at their rivalries, and obviously you've got the Manchester Derby, and that's well known. And now that Liverpool's got a resurgence going on, there's that they're going to compete for the title, and then you've got Arsenal, who just feels like they're trying to punch up and be those title contenders, but like I don't know. I never feel all that threatened by them. Like it's yeah, okay, you're top four, but you're right. Like, what have you won? You won the FA Cup versus a shit team. You won a Community Shield. Great. What does that matter?
I think that like so without getting too deep into this like into the bashing on Arsenal, this is a Tottenham podcast. Just so you know, but and I appreciate the I really appreciate the question. It was a really good question because um it does really two things. It tells you where Arsenal is in comparison to Tottenham right now and where they are in their project and where West Ham is in comparison to Tottenham, right? So when you're looking at the Arsenal wanting to compete with the cities and the Liverpools of the world, and Liverpool is arguably running away with it right now, and City is pissed off enough that they sat in around 6th and 7th for a while that they're like, fuck this, it's time to turn on the Jets. They may even catch Arsenal at this point, but is Arsenal going to compete with City? Probably not. I don't. Or they're not going to compete with Arsenal. And yeah, Terry's right. A lot of their rejects that came from City are now toiling away in on the other side of North London. But then you have it also tells a story about Tottenham right now and where Tottenham is in that project. So I mean, we're at the very beginning of the project. We're at step 2 in this project, and who knows if Ange is going to be around to see the project through. It would be great if he is, but when West Ham is going, we're going to finish above Tottenham, that's our goal. What are you looking at? It's kind of embarrassing for Tottenham, right? Because it tells you where Tottenham is. But if you look at statistical anomalies, Tottenham is a statistical anomaly right now. Right now, their goals for puts them right around 5th. Their goal differential puts them right around 5th. So like they should be there. But we've talked about this before. When you're scoring 4 and 5 goals against teams, like when we beat City 4-0, that's 4 goals on the plus side, right? But then when you're losing to Ipswich, and you're losing to fucking Leicester City, right? It doesn't. It tends to even itself out. So obviously, when you're looking down the table and you're seeing Tottenham sitting there in 13th, and you're going, how the fuck does this team have a plus like 14 goal differential and they're in 13th? It's a statistical anomaly that's happened, and it's happened, to us this year. So it is kind of embarrassing that Tottenham is down there and West Ham their sights are there. But it's also embarrassing for West Ham, because that shows you where they are.
Speaking of statistical anomalies,
what has West Ham done?
What's that?
I was saying, what has West Ham done recently? Like we have a good friend Tyson, like they haven't done, they don't build. They don't have like to me, watching their program, there is no program. It's like, who can we sign, and then who are we going to sell really cheap or for free, and we're going to push them to the side.
And that's kind of the story of them, right?
Yeah.
They have a year or two where they compete, but like I think my point was that like it's kind of an embarrassment for Arsenal, but they are further ahead in that project, right? And had we done the painful rebuild back when Poch said to do the painful rebuild, what would have happened? We may be up there right now. And we were ahead of Arsenal for a few years in the Poch years, right? We were ahead of Arsenal in our project. And Poch recognized that there's a lot of players here that are aging. There are a lot of players here that aren't going to be able to compete. Kieran Trippier being one of them, aren't going to be able to compete at the level that I need them to compete. He went to Newcastle, and sure, he went like straight fucking rocket ship to the moon for 2 seasons and then got burned out because he was being played fucking ungodly minutes because they didn't build a squad. So in the end, what Tottenham has to do is what City did, is what Liverpool did. And they need to build a squad. They need to build a squad, and not in the way that fucking Chelsea built a squad, right? You just don't Todd Bowley your way and LA Dodgers your way to a fucking squad. Because you're seeing that come to fruition now where they're fucking falling apart.
So I want to hit on that one really quick on Chelsea part. Chelsea to me reminds me that I'm playing Football Manager. Don't care about a budget. Just sign. Oh, I've got 200 million to spend. Let me buy 15 players. And that's how the Chelsea way is like the Football Manager way. That's just how I feel with Chelsea.
Agreed.
And with that, I think it's time for our very special segment. And Terry, I'll let you introduce it. It's a fun one. We always ask a very specific question to a very specific person to figure out what this person may or may not be consuming, imbibing, whatever you want to call it. So if you would be so kind, you might ask this individual what they're consuming. In a very fun way.
In a very fun way. Be like, I'm supposed to go to like, hey, Pops, what you drinking?
Perfect.
There you go. I like that. Hey, Pops, that was even better. It makes me feel kind of like the elder statesman, like a fucking old man. Actually, Terry, believe it or not, actually, the listeners won't fucking believe it anyway, because I put it out that you're on the podcast. I put it out on Blue Sky that you're on the podcast tonight. So, I was at Pro Pig yesterday with the family. We had what we thought was going to be a nice little day in Waterbury and Stowe, and the weather really fucked that in the ass. But I said to Terry, I said, like, you're going to be on the podcast. I'm going to do one of your beers. Terry and I have been discussing it for about a week now. He suggested a few, and then I said, well, what's this one? I haven't heard of this one yet. Cullyman Can. This is a 6.7 IPA, right? Is it a double? No, it's a single IPA, right? Single IPA. So Terry made this beer. This is Terry's very special recipe. I have a video. This is a crowler. It's a big ass fucking can of beer. Terry's also drinking a crowler. I just finished off the crowler of the Kolsch, which was delicious, nice and sweet. I love it. The super cool colors. I like it. If you can't really see it on here, but like it's the pink stripes with the green pig. The green and the pink are just beautiful complementary colors. But this is a crowler. It's a can growler. Crowler, if you will. I don't know when this was brewed, but I'm going to let Terry talk about it a little bit. While I pour this and drink it, just give us a little bit of what went into like the naming of the beer, because it's a kind of an interesting name.
Yeah, so it's interesting because the name is Cullyman Can, right? All one word. I have a bartender who's still on vacation. He comes back this week. We found out his Netflix password. The beer name is his Netflix password. So while he was gone, I decided to just have some fun trolling by naming my new IPA his Netflix password, which is Cullyman Can, and he doesn't know yet. He won't know until he comes back on vacation. I haven't got a text message or anything. All the staff, no one's telling him about it. Managers, no one's telling him about it. So when he comes back, he'll just be like, "What the fuck, guys?" His Netflix password. Yeah, so 6.7% New England style IPA. It's got Amarillo. It's got equal amounts in the dry hop of Amarillo, Citra, and Mosaic. I'm not going to go into any tasting notes or anything like that because I'll let Pops do all that. Um, for my brewing style, it's not overly bitter. But I always have an IPA on that rotates. So this is just this version of my IPA that's rotating. Will I do this beer again? Probably not. Um, IPAs for the most part, that's my creative freedom that I have at work. So I just have some fun with it. You got flaked oats in there. You've got this crystal like 10 malt. It's called Wireman Cara Amber. It gives a little bit of color to it. Base 2-row with some wheat. Honestly, it's a very traditional New England style IPA.
Yeah, right. So like the Citras, the Amarillos are like those are the hops that they're more they're more to that juicy orangey than the grapefruit tendencies, correct?
Yeah, I don't. I
Your
would say
mosaics are kind of like more interchangeable,
Mosaic more peachy kind of notes.
peachy, right? Yeah.
Peachy with some orange citrus kind of notes to that I usually get. Some Mosaic, depending on how it's farmed or where it is, gives off strawberry, which is
Interesting.
unique. Yeah.
It's got like a little bit of a it does hit like on the nose like that peachy kind of maybe guava or
Yeah. Yeah, you could say tropical fruit. You just, pick one of them. Passion fruit.
Let's see. Is he gonna badmouth it with you right here?
no. Well, you know what? I kind of like the thing is I know Terry so well that I fucking want to. I haven't found one of his beers that I don't like yet. Which there's bound to be one. But this one tastes like a traditional New England style, Vermont style IPA. It's pretty floral. It does have those notes of it. It really does. You said peach, and it hits hard on the peach. A lot more peach than I thought. The guava, like you said, any of those like tropical fruits, the guava, the mangoes. It's got a little bit of a skunky character to it. It's got the mouthfeel and of that typical New England style IPA. I really like it. It's not overly hopped. It's not overly bitter. Like I feel like a lot of times with IPAs, especially in Vermont IPAs, when they're not, it's hard to say when they're not made by Vermont breweries, and they're not great beers. A lot of these brewers tend to use these hops to mask the shitty quality of the beer behind it. This beer for me it's pretty refreshing. It's actually pretty refreshing. It's almost sessionable for like it does have that thick kind of mouthfeel though. But I mean,
Yeah. You're gonna get that thick mouth feel, like when you're sipping that and you get it back here. That's from the flaked oats. The flaked oats gives it that quote unquote thickness in your mouthfeel. For the beer, I personally, my brewing style, I don't over bitter beers. I I'm more on, for my drinkers, a more sessionable experience, as you said, just a more, because like you can have a bitter beer, an awesome double IPA, but you have one and you're like, okay, my palate is shot. I don't want to drink another one of those. That's not how I brew.
yeah, those like you said, yeah, those big fucking hop bombs. Like every once in a while, you want an 8.5% beer. That can be fun if you're sitting down for like one fucking beer. But if you want to have not 2 or 3 beers, a 6.7, a 7% alcohol beer that doesn't have like this does not have any of that crazy alcohol burn to it that you get sometimes with big beers. It's perfectly hazy. It's not see-through, right? But I mean, I really enjoy the beer, and quite honestly, it's one of and I'm sad that you think you may not make it again. I did go to look at some of the Beer Advocate reviews, and there's one, and they only give it a 4. So I mean, this beer, it wasn't Lone Freighter. Do you know who Lone Freighter is on Beer Advocate, Terry?
No.
He's a douchebag we used to make fun of.
Oh, I only tapped this beer last week though, so it hasn't been on long or anything because it was going to be named Run Like a Cully Bear. So his nickname for his wife calls him Cully Bear. So I was like, oh, I'm totally using that. And he's a fish fan, so instead of Run Like an Antelope, Run Like a Cully Bear. But then I found out his Netflix password. And then the Netflix password name had to be the name of the beer.
That's wonderful. That's ultimate trolling, and I think our Wicked Spursy fans, especially there's actually 2. Wendy, Chris Miller from the Extra Inch will appreciate that, and I know our friend Adam will appreciate that as well. Adomalist. They're both fans of Wicked Spursy here, and like this segment, and we almost ditched this segment, but now we're at a point where we're doing the fucking spreadsheet and everything, and we used to like it started out, Terry, where we were doing like making fun of Beer Advocate reviews, and now it's gotten to the point where I've started like reading things and looking into the science and that kind of shit behind it, and you know, talking to you, I get a little more education and meeting some of the other brewers that I've met, you know, because of you at Zero Gravity. It's been a fun experience actually learning more about the beer and becoming a little more nerdy with it. Steve generally asks me to, once I give my review of the beer and give my rating. My rating's coming up. This is one of the favorite beers that I've had in a while, and I wish I had gotten more actually. So Steve always asks me for a player. If I were to rate this beer as a player and as a number, so I got to give it the number. And my number, are you ready, Steve? Do you have your guess in?
My guess is in, but before you give it, I'm going to ask one question. It's not going to influence my response. It's already locked into the spreadsheet, but I just need to know going into it before I hear it, because I recently had my personal favorite IPA. I told you about it on Friday, Mike, Dead Flowers. And I know you've had that. How does it compare to that?
I think it's a different beer altogether.
Interesting.
Not just in name and not just in brewer. I like Dead Flowers. It's not one of my absolute favorites ever. You know, I think one of my tops I think is 40 Thieves. I also like the original Double Sunshine before they started canning it at Lawson's, but comparatively, like as far as my ratings for a beer, I think it's going to be over the top of Dead Flowers. Actually, I think I have one in my fridge here, believe it or not. But
all right, let's hear the rating.
The rating is going to be a 4.1 out of 5.
Yes,
you got it
in a row.
Wow, man, you're on a fucking roll.
Yes, suck it, Brian.
So our friend Brian from Rhode Island was on a roll for a while. He's one of our other hosts.
Was he? Let's look at the spreadsheet. When did he last get something right? I don't know about that.
No, it's been a while.
Way fucking off.
Well, I threw him off pretty badly 1 week. It was my fault. It was intentional.
Still, you know, Mike.
What we could do is we could have it. I could sell it to the lodge. Boom.
You could sell it to the lodge.
I would have had 3 in a row if Mike hadn't gone for the 0.05 difference with his stupid fucking Samuel Smith Imperial Stout 3 weeks ago.
Was it the 395 I did?
Yeah, and I guessed 4. Son of a bitch. This close.
So yeah, 4.1. I like this beer. I really like this beer, Terry. It doesn't give you like that bad aftertaste. It doesn't sit there on your palate and like make you not want another beer. It really it's such a flavorful beer, and maybe you want to consider making more of it, but like IPAs, tend to be played out a little bit in Vermont, but and maybe on the beer landscape now, but like you said, IPA gives you so much license to do creative things, right?
Yep.
So
That's kind of what it is. Like I get fun hops, throw it in an IPA, or like fun ingredients. Kind of like, what do I want to? Ooh, I got this. What can I put it? IPA. Kind of thing. It's just, that's why at Pro Pig's a little bit different than other breweries or other spots, is because we only have normally one IPA on at all times. We have our double, right? So that's a different one, but like I'm not having 3 or 4 IPAs on because they're gonna fight each other in the like at the restaurant. Like basically, it's like, no, having 3 or 4 of them on at once is actually gonna slow down how fast one may sell. So I really don't do that very often, if ever, actually.
well, there you have it. So I'm going to give it my player rating here.
Yes, the player. Who do we have?
Remember when I did the Musa Sissoko that in the oh boy, that was fuck, man, that sucked. I'm going to give this 4.1 to our boy right now, our young footballer of the year for this season. It's going to be the 4.1 performance by our midfielder playing center back all season, Archie Gray. This is an Archie Gray 4.1, like for an 18-year-old kid to come into the Premier League after playing in the championship with Leeds. Like I can't speak any bigger, give any bigger plaudits to any player than to give this 4.1 beer to Archie Gray for what he's done for this club this year and how he's performed. And he's performing like he's a seasoned center back, and he's a defensive midfielder. He's an Yves Bissouma. He's a Rodrigo Bentancur, and he's playing center back like he's a seasoned veteran, and I love it.
Excellent. And that's been Hey Mike. For those of you listening, if you do get the chance, I highly recommend checking out Pro Pig in Waterbury, Vermont. Great food, excellent drinks. And I'm not just saying that because Terry's on. I've truly, like Mike, I haven't had a bad beer there.
One of the best whiskey selections and booze selections in the state.
Actually, can I do a tiny thing really quick?
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, because Poppy hit on whiskey, right? So recently, like 6 weeks ago, Pro Pig got an award from Whiskey Advocate. We got named one of the top 125 whiskey bars in the country. And we are the only one in the state of Vermont that got that award. So, yes, we have beer, we have our liquor society, liquor flights, and smoked meats.
And like the brisket was fucking phenomenal. But also what Pro Pig has that not many places have, Schlitz.
Yeah, so our owner's grandfather used to brew for Schlitz.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, so that's why we always have it.
Oh my god, it's that. So Terry, going way back to when brewing, like home brewing was huge. When I was doing home brewing, that was my go-to beer for brew day.
Yeah, your brew beer. That was your brew
beer. It was my brew beer. I have brew beers. 12 pack of Schlitz, and the Bevy was the only place that had it in bottles.
Yep.
There we go.
So let's move on, Stevie.
Yeah, we've got 2 games this week again. It's been a little while since we've had a 2-gamer, but we've got our Europa League fixture at AZ Alkmaar with reuniting with Troy Parrott, who is over there. And we've got Bournemouth at the weekend on Sunday. How are you feeling going into these fixtures, Miguel?
Troy Parrott's gonna fucking fight somebody.
Is it going to be Romero? Is that when he's going to come back and they're going to
Romero's gonna come back immediately, get a red card, and we'll never see him again. We'll see. He'll be playing in La Liga the next time we see him. So no, to be quite honest, like this game is going to be a tough game. So AZ played through their playoff spot in Europa to make it back to Tottenham. They're in our league phase, and I think that it's going to be a tough matchup. They're not going to be easy. They play in that league, the Turkish league, and they're not a pushover, right? They weren't a pushover when we played them initially. They're not going to continue to be a pushover. This is a 2-leg match, right? And we're lucky to have the home leg on the back end of it. But I think that Tottenham comes out of this okay.
Did you say they play in Turkey?
Did I say Turkey?
That's what I was. No, they're Dutch.
Dutch. Fuck
They're
me.
Dutch. I got really
You're
confused. I had to
thinking
Google-
Galatasaray.
I'm thinking Galatasaray. Well, I'll be editing that part out. That's the second time I fucked up in this.
Don't worry, I got a research department on it.
That goddamn research department, they get me every time. So anyway, so they if they played in the Turkish league, they'd still be tough. But when you're looking at teams that are mid table in their leagues, when they're fighting through the league phase of the Europa League, and don't quite make it there. They're in the playoffs. They grind out that playoff game. They still have league games. They're going to be probably fighting just as hard as Tottenham is. They have they played us very, very tough in the first matchup. Was that the game that we who was that? Somebody got a red card straight off in that match.
Yeah, I believe that was correct. I couldn't tell you who it was, but I do think that was a game where we got a red card and then it was a 1-0 victory.
Right. So
We'll get the research department on it and they'll get back to you.
Anyway, I think that game is going to be tough.
They had the red card.
Yes.
Richarlison scored and they had David Muller-Wolf sent off.
Right.
Remember when we had Richarlison playing?
No. I don't. He along with Romero have tested my patience to the end. Romero's like 72 missed matches or something like that now, and I'm at my wit's end. He's a great player, but he deserves to be sold to a team who won't injure him, and that in a league that won't injure him. And I think that league is La Liga. We'll get there when Italy. Yeah.
Juve.
Have him back. Italy. He was at Atalanta. He was Serie A's player of the year before we got him. But I don't know. I think that AZ is going to be tough.
All right. And what about Bournemouth?
Okay, so let's get into Bournemouth. Bournemouth again. They're in a very unique position where they were a promoted team, and they stayed up their first year, and now they're flying high. It's like last year. last year when Crystal Palace was flying high. They have brilliant players. They're making a run at a European spot right now. I really enjoy watching them play. They play a style of football that is not necessarily conservative, but it's not necessarily completely attacking either. They know when to attack. They know how to use their players properly. Um, uh, I, I think that Bournemouth. Where are they on the table? Like seventh, seventh right now.
They're seventh. Yes.
Yeah. So they're on a run of games, and they're a really fun team to watch. Um, I think that like they have like Justin Kluivert and Semenyo, like those players are um those players are exciting young players to watch. I guess you couldn't say they're young, but they're a young team altogether. They're well coached, and I think that their approach to the game is such that it puts them into contention. But like just like every other team that like gets thrown into a situation where they're playing for a European spot next year, it may not be so fucking rosy, right? Like it happened to Newcastle, it happened to Tottenham. Like if you don't have they don't have a giant squad, right? They scored 45 goals, right? They're at a plus 13 goal differential. So that tells you where they're at, right? I think that and they've given up less goals than Spurs have. So I mean, they're right around the same level as Spurs, and I think with the players that we have returning, I think that Spurs probably have the upper hand, and I'm expecting I'm expecting a win out of that game. It's at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and I'm expecting a win out of that game.
Do you think what's the Bournemouth manager? Do you think he's ready for a bigger club? Like next job, big club. If a spot like opens up at, would you take him at Tottenham?
Um,
We'll use that question. Would you take him at Tottenham? Just seeing how we're on a Spurs podcast.
So I had said this earlier in the season, like so Areola is. I don't know if he would be. I think he would work wonders with the team he has because like I said, he is pretty conservative in the midfield. He plays traditionally like he'll play traditionally like a back four, but has been also known to play a back three or a back five, depending on he's more willing to change his tactics depending on the teams he's playing than say Ange is, right? And like I said, I don't know if Ange is the guy for the future or not, the guy who's going to see this through. But I think Areola, I think, would be a good guy I would probably take him at Tottenham. I think he's got the right temperament, and I think he's probably good with his players that he has. I mean, he's worked kind of wonders with that team, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who would have thought that Bournemouth would be up there after being promoted 2 years ago?
He's certainly done well, credit where it's due. We've also seen at Spurs,
and they have Kepa as their fucking keeper too, right? Isn't it Kepa? I'm probably wrong again. Research department.
No, you're right.
There we go. But yeah, I mean, we've also seen managers come from these quote unquote lesser teams at Spurs and do pretty well. So who's to say? I mean, I wouldn't be opposed personally. I can't really think of reasonable alternatives, in a situation where Spurs were in the market for somebody new. There's not really a whole lot out there. So yeah, I mean, I would take him, but I don't know if he's quite ready to leave Bournemouth yet. I think if he can get one more season of them being really competitive in the top half of the table, he's probably going to have some suitors, especially if Amarim keeps shooting himself in the foot at United. Every time the guy opens his mouth, it's like he's getting fired sometime, isn't he?
He left a good job to come and try and fix United, and a couple of coaches, decent coaches, have done that, and I think Amarim was like the new hot, sexy name in coaching. But I'm going to ask Terry, because you guys have a similar situation where with another team who's kind of come out of nowhere to challenge for European spots. You guys have Forest coming up next.
I love the Forest story. I'm not gonna lie, like, yeah, they went crazy at a couple years ago when they first came up. They bought 18 players or something absurd.
Yep.
I don't know if many of them are still on the roster, as they figured out, oh, that's not the way to do things, the Football Manager way. It's weird because before you'd think Forest, oh, they should be 18th, 19th in the table. No, they're third right now. It's funny. Chris Wood, you got to watch out for Chris Wood, striker Chris. And I'm hoping that it's not a hiccup game, that we can have two consistent performances back to back, where everything just happens. As you said before with Holland, just walk in, everything just happens to fall into place, kind of thing. I will say that I'm very happy with Kuzanov, and think every time I watch him track back or track somebody down and run back, I get old school Kyle Walker speed. Which is, I mean, we both had Kyle Walker.
He was brilliant. He was brilliant in that game against Tottenham. I mean,
yeah.
I was watching for Marmoush, but I thought that Kuzanov was probably your best player.
Marmoush didn't do much. I would say Ederson was our best player. He needed that morale booster, and he needs to keep those morale boosters going. I mean, Ederson's probably the best goalkeeper in the world with his feet, right?
Yeah. No doubt. He's a center back who can touch the ball.
I think he has more assists this year than he's got 3 or 4 assists this year. There was a stat I saw, and it was just making fun of Bruno Fernandes basically, and said, Ederson has more assists than Bruno Fernandes, but I don't know if that one's right. Research department needs to figure that one out. Yeah, I'll be excited for this coming week, see what's going on. And this is one for City that they need to take all 3 points, as they're in third. They're one spot ahead of City right now, on the track to catching Arsenal. No one's gonna catch Liverpool. It's done, dusted. Liverpool's got that one.
Agreed.
I'll be curious what happens with Liverpool, as according to the English media, we have the new Egyptian king at City, Mamouche. He didn't do much though against Tottenham. Saying that, was it 2 games ago? He scored a hat trick in a half hour. So I mean, it's the typical striker thing. They're gonna have their days where things don't go in, and then they're gonna have their days where everything works out.
I love that. Well, we are just about on time here. We're about an hour and 10 minutes, so we're just about on time here. I really want to thank Terry for coming on today. We had to drop Steve, unfortunately. Whenever we have guests on, Steve tends to take a back seat and not talk too much. But we are missing out on Brian from Rhode Island and Tristan today. Tristan is off with the flu, so we wish him well. And Brian from Rhode Island is off in DC because he's a fucking high roller and a big businessman. And he's got meetings this week, so he's off in DC. But it was great to have this conversation with Terry. Great to have him on. I always like to get opposing viewpoints, and Terry and I give each other shit all the time, so that's always fun too. off the podcast platforms. But we do have. I'm going to give some final thoughts here before we sign off. We do have our Vermont Green coming up very soon. We're getting some player announcements of players coming back, so things are starting to ramp up. We're going to have probably some kit announcements coming soon. Vermont Green is a local USL 2 club to Vermont. They're in the U.S. soccer system, and I do another podcast called United in Green with our aforementioned friend Tyson and Tyler, who is our spirit coordinator. We do that as kind of an homage to what the club has done for us as fans and as a supporters group. So if you guys can, and if you like local soccer, we're going to be doing that. We are hooked up as United in Green with the Blazing Musket, and they do they're a website that does a lot of stuff with the with New England soccer. So if you guys like good local soccer, Vermont Green, check them out. And on top of all that, I do want to mention that it is that kind of year where that type of or time of year, I should say, where we're getting into the warmer weather. Everybody's getting out there, but I just want to make sure that everybody with that weather in Vermont, especially, it changes really quickly. So if you're out on the roads, if you're doing your thing out on the roads with your families, make sure that you're driving safe and that you take care of your families, take care of yourselves. But in the end, we are the Wicked Spursy podcast. You can find us on Blue Sky. We're no longer on that other platform that is similar to Blue Sky. You can find us on Instagram until Blue Sky invents something else that is similar to Instagram. And we're going to try and get off of Meta platforms too. But until then, you can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms and on those social media apps. But I think I just want to mention that Steve had to leave, and I'm going to, whenever he does this, there's a reason why. And I'm going to tell you why right now. It's because he's a fucking nerd. He's a fucking nerd, and he has to go play with dragons and wizards right now.
I was about to say, does he have to go raid?
He does. He's he's playing with dragons and wizards right now. He's a grown adult man who plays with dragons and wizards.
Okay.
Yeah. So good for him. We love you, Steve, and we love and miss you, Dave. But so we're just going to sign off. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep talking and rambling. So signing off, we're just going to say coys, and don't be an asshole. Those are Steve's words. My words are going to be everybody go out there and be safe and always, always, always protect your mental health. And Tottenham Hotspur action. And tactic. Dude, that was fucking awesome. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, that was fun. I'm respectful on stuff like that. You can have some fun with friendly banter and everything.
Dude, I couldn't have. Listen. I can have you guys on. I can have Tyson on. I can't have those Arsenal fuckers on. I cannot have Dan on at all because Dan doesn't see the world any other way but through fucking red glasses and white sleeves.